Welcome, Stella enthusiast, and let's build the Stella 1.2 Air Analyzer plugin for the base module. Starting off with the tools, you will need wire strippers, snips, a breadboard, solder iron, multimeter, hobby knife, marker, tape, flux, needle nose pliers, and a soldering braid. For the 3D parts, you will need the air analyzer housing, air analyzer end cap, the pinned coupler aligner, and particulate sensor spacer. For the Stella 1.2 air analyzer plugin, you will need the following parts: proto board, half size, particulate sensor, methane sensor adapter, 4.7k ohm resistor, 2 times 100k ohm resistors, a quick cable, precision air temperature sensor, and a CO2 sensor. Now, let's build. So we start with our proto board here, and we are going to cut some tracers, just as we did with the module build. In this case, though, we're going to start at the opposite end. I'm going to mark the A30 area, and then I'm going to cut the traces here. In this case, I am cutting the traces from 30AB, BC, and CD, as well as 30HI and IJ. And you want to take out a nice little segment there. Okay, taking a quick look. Remember, it's only just the first traces, not the first two like you did for the base module. But I make sure that everything's out there and it's looking good. Okay. And I will test the continuity with my digital multimeter. Okay. Turn it on. Turn on beep mode. There you go. If it beeps, there's continuity, and we don't want continuity between those because we severed the traces. Okay. If everything looks good, we're ready to begin installing the couplers. We need to align the couplers, so we're going to use our coupler aligner. Remember, we're using the pinned couplers. We use the flat face on the base module. We use the pinned ones on the plugins. Okay. And I like to tape the couplers down, hold them in place, and you want to leave a little bit of room so that you can put some wires in there. Okay. All right. And so for this particular one, let's see here. I started a little bit ahead, and I put the J30 wire in there. That's a bus coupler wire for the 5-volt power. I put a purple wire in there. That's the analog wire at H30. See, so I'm doing it all out of order here a little bit. D30, I'm using the white wire. But if you follow the wiring menu, it's all the same. Let's see, C30, the green wire. That's your serial. Okay, your SCL. I2C SCL. Then you have your 3.3 volt wire. There's your main wire there for power, and your ground. All right. That's it for those. We're going to solder. And see, I left some nice length in there. Okay, that's because you're going to need some slack a little bit later on when you're installing your spacers. So let's flux it on up, and let's solder them on down, and then clean up our board. Make sure that you regularly clean your solder iron. Okay, you can tin it on up. Try to make nice little teepees, little volcanoes with your soldering. Let's clean this board on up. Untape. Make sure our pins look pretty good. There we go. Beautiful, nice, beautiful array of wires. Make sure the sleeves are. Make sure the wire coating was on there. You don't want any exposed wire if you can help it. All right, and then we're going to start bending the wires over. So we're going to put our ground to the negative below A30. We're going to put our red 3.3 volt wire to the positive below A30. We're going to put the I2C SCL green wire above J30. We're also going to put our white wire that's from D30 to the positive SDA above J30. Okay. And then for our 5 volt power from J30, we're going to put it, it's going to be after we put our particulate sensor in. So you're going to leave that hanging loose. And remember, you need some extra wire for that. So you're going to leave your purple and your orange wire a bit loose for now. The other ones can be installed. And make sure that we don't have any cold solders here. Clean up our board. It's looking pretty good. All right. Now we're on to our next phase here. I'm going to test for continuity because I want to make sure I didn't have any bridging going on in this particular area here, because it might be easy, and test for continuity along the traces there. Every now and again, sometimes they'll have some sort of little mistake there, and it's always very obnoxious. If there is it's just a very easy thing to rule out real quick. Let's gather some materials here. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and pop in our 5 volt power. This is going to, again, go in with our couplers, coupler wire in a bit. Okay, so this is our 5 volt power H8 to H9. Go. And so now we're wiring up a bit here of our let's see here. So with our bus coupler wires, so our ground from below the negative below A8 to A8 itself. Okay. And once we have that done and it's looking good, we're going to pull out our resistors. Okay, so we're going to use one 4.7k ohm resistor and two 100k ohm resistors. Okay, the 4.7k ohm resistor. Alright, we're going to bend it a little bit off screen here and then pop it on in. Okay, and we're going for the ground below A9, the negative, and to C9 with that resistor, with the 4.7k ohm resistor. Okay, and then with the next 100k ohm resistor, we're going to go from E9 to E12. And for the third, we are going to go from C12 to ground below A12. Okay. And it never hurts to double check and make sure you got them in the right pinholes. Definitely missed one just by a hair. And sometimes you just get so confident that you were right. And you make a mistake. Something simple. Let's go ahead and solder these guys on and then clean up our board. There we go. Nice and clean. Make sure that we have a good solder here. There we are. Much better. All right. And that's what it should look like when you're done with the installing resistors, that is. So now we're going to do the methane sensor. The methane sensor is a little tricky. There's a certain order of operations you got to do it in. You have to install the headers on the adapter board first, and then the methane sensor on the adapter. And I want to keep the text facing down so that I can see the text, because I want to make sure that the pins are correct when I install it. Okay, so thinking about clamping it on here, but it didn't really work out that well. So I'm going to use the breadboard. So okay, we made our headers, two 2-pin headers. Okay, I'm going to use the breadboard and we'll pull that out and stabilize it on there. There we go. Alright, let me push this down in. There we go. Make sure it's flat, level, looking good. Okay, and then we're going to solder it on. Move that station out of the way. There we go. Little flux. Okay. And again, text side down. It really helps, especially if you go back to the schematic and all that, to make sure that, you know, again, that using the text to make sure that, you know, you got ground to ground and, you know, your 5 volt to 5 volt, all that, analog to analog. All right. And then we're going to install the sensor itself, the methane sensor. So we're going to put the leads on in, push them on through. Okay, make sure it's nice and tight. Looking good. Okay, flux it on up and solder. Okay, and it doesn't matter. You can it can go from either side to either side with the 3 pins, and it won't matter for this particular application. Okay, then once we got it all soldered up, should be pretty good. All right, and I'm going to trim those pins down a bit because I want the adapter to sit pretty flush to the proto board. All right. See, this is kind of that's what it looks like. You can see where the ground is. Okay. And that's a good hint. You know, it's always good to double or triple check to make sure that the ground is hitting the ground wire. Okay, so you can check that out on the trace and all that. And if you did that, then it should be installed correctly. All right, I'm going to tape that down. Make sure it's nice and steady. The methane sensor goes on the rear, D8 to D9, G8 to G9. Try to let gravity do its work and carry that solder down on in. The gravity and heat. Okay, so I just did 2 leads to start because I want to make sure that it's looking good, that it looks level. If it isn't, you know, I can always you know, just work on the solder and level it out a lot easier. Okay. All right. It looks pretty good. I think we're on to the next thing. Now we're going to install the CO2 sensor. And we're going to start out with the headers. The headers go from G3 to G7. Okay. I would tape that down. And usually do just the outside with the solder. Let's give it a shot. Let's make sure he flux it. There we go. Okay, and solder. Come on, get on in there. It's a little tight. Angle it well. Try not to burn the sensor. Okay, so I got the outer two. I looked at them. They're looking pretty. Okay, let's check underneath. Make sure there's no gaps. There's a little. Looks like there might be a little bit of a gap, so we'll go ahead and just do that solder a little bit, boom, and level things out. There you go. A bit level. All right. Okay, just finish soldering the rest of the pins. All right. That looks pretty good. Okay. There we go. There's what the board should look like when it starts. And now we're going to go ahead and solder our CO2 sensor in. Be careful not to touch the ceramic white portion, which is the top of the sensor there, right in the middle. And go ahead and solder it in. I use some extra header pins, just tucked underneath as a nice leveler to keep the sensor level while I go ahead and solder it on in. Okay. Now, once you have that, let's wire up that CO2 sensor. Okay. Let's see here. We're going from, let's see, H5 to the negative blue, A3. Okay, and H7 to the positive below A2. Okay, and in green, we're going from J4 to the negative above J4. And for J3, we are going to go to the positive above J3 with our serial. Okay. So see, I'm looping that around a bit. So you want to leave enough slack to do that. I did it in this order in this first video, in this first go around. I have since edited the order that I would like to go in. So I would install the headers and then the wires first, and then install the methane sensor. Okay. And then the CO2 breakout, and then the particulate sensor and spacer, and the temperature sensor. So you could go with that order as well. This is the order I went in for. Like I said, this was my first go around with this one as I was identifying the order to go in. But it all works out in the end. And it was a nice challenge. Make sure we clean up our board. That's what it ends up looking like. So now I do like to put the quick connect in after the CO2 sensor and hook it up to the particulate sensor. Makes it a bit easier before I really start getting on the spacer. Okay. Alright, there's the spacer. That's the spacer for the particulate sensor. Alright. Alright, and if we get it lined all up, well, then we can start with our quick connect chase. Basically straps. So they're going to be on the same trace line, so that's good for each one of them. Okay, you're going to want one with that's approximately 110 millimeters of sheathing. So you want to strip one end, get 110 millimeters of sheathing, and leave yourself a bit of extra space and strip off the other end. Okay. Then you are going to want one that is has approximately 70 millimeters worth of wire sheathing still left on it, and same thing. You trim the ends and make sure there's about 70 millimeters left. Okay, and that obviously goes on the smaller side there, and it should strap down the sensor pretty darn well. Okay, I like to make them pretty taut so that there's not a lot of wiggle room at all. And then you'll have your particulate sensor strapped down. And again, this is one of the genius things that Paul came up with as well, besides creating the sensor spacer, but strapping these down with these wires and including the other coupler wires that we haven't, put across yet. We're going to clean up our board here. Alright, we're getting close. So that's what it looks like at this point. Alright, now we're going to take our last coupler wires, and they are also going to help keep the sensor strapped down. Okay, and in the little sensor spacer, there are holes that align in there. So we're going to try and make this pretty taut as well. Maybe not quite as taut as the other ones, but there's still going to be a nice little backup. Okay, and so this wire from D30 is going to go to, this wire from J30 is going to go to J8. And so you'll see that in the wiring notes to solder after the particulate sensor is put in. Okay. And then after the orange wire, we are doing the purple wire. And the purple wire from analog input 1 from the coupler is going from H30 to D12. Okay, so you left enough line there, enough slack to go ahead and install that, and now you can make it pretty taut as well. Remember, you want to try not to leave any exposed wire out there. Okay. Go ahead, flux it on up, Solder our wires on in. And trim our board, or clean our board. Alright, that's looking pretty darn good. Now we're going to attach the temperature sensor here. Okay. There's a nice little view of it. Alright, and let's go ahead and slide it gently into the base there. Okay, and we tuck that the temperature sensor in there. Nice and neat. Oop, popped right on that. There we go. Now it's holding. Okay, and we put our cap on, and you can see I changed the base. I like the white base with the blue cap. So, and you have created an error analyzer plugin for the Stella 1.2. Congratulations. And join us for the remote sensing plugin later on. Thank you.